Good evening. If we are to accomplish anything tonight, you will have to cooperate, really cooperate, and understand everything that is said. We have a very large order before us, and it is not because of quantity. It is because of one tiny phrase you have used all your life without knowing what you were doing with it. Tonight we are not adding new words. We are correcting the consciousness behind two words already on your tongue. I am. If we can set that right, you will have a foundation under your feet that does not wobble. If we miss it, everything that follows will wobble with it. This is not an inspirational talk. This is a principle to be proven by you in the laboratory of your own awareness. It is a law. You cannot get away from it. Your use of I am either opens the door to the presence that is already within, or it throws a veil over it. There is no middle ground in principle. When you say, I am, as a separate personal self, Mr. Jones, Mrs. Smith, this mind, this body, this little history, you have, without knowing it, moved God to the other side of a wall. Not in fact. God does not depart. The kingdom of God is within you. But to your awareness, to your functioning consciousness, it becomes as if God were over there, and then all your thought, all your effort is spent trying to bring God over here. That is the shade drawn across sunlight. The sun was never absent, the shade was. So I ask you now to enter into a simple contract with me for this hour. Do not argue with your old habits. Do not explain to yourself that you already know this. Put aside everything you think I am going to say and listen as if for the first time. You are not asked to believe. You are asked to observe, to test, and to prove. And the test is simple. Change the meaning of I am in your own awareness from a person to presence, and watch what happens to prayer, to fear, and to your sense of problem. When I say blocking God's presence, do not imagine a deity withdrawing. There is no such God. There is only God, the one presence, the one power. The block is not in God. The block is the mesmerism of a separate I that cannot perceive what is omnipresent. Like a man in a bright room with his eyes closed, he insists the light is gone. He does not need a new sun. He needs to open his eyes. Here is how we will proceed. First, we will expose the misuse of I am, because until you see the error, you will repeat it unconsciously. Then we will prove, in the simplest kindergarten way, that separation is an assumption and not a fact. Finally, I will give you one practice, one treatment that anyone can do in a minute. A brief declaration of truth and then silence, listening until presence announces itself. If you will cooperate, if you will let go for 60 seconds at a time of that personal I, you will discover that prayer is not words going out. It is a still, sure word coming in. And when that word is heard, all is well, because God is on the field. Now, let me name the mistake, so there can be no doubt left to hide in. When you say, I am sick, I am anxious, I am unworthy, I am trying to reach God. If that I is this separate person, this mind, this body, this history, you have in that breath placed God at a distance. Not actually. God does not move. The kingdom of God is within you. But to your sense, to your functioning awareness, you have pushed God over there. And now you stand over here. And all your prayer, all your practice, is spent calling across a gulf that was never in God. That is the misuse. It is not the grammar. It is the identification. Who is speaking when you say, I? Do not pass that question lightly. It is the turning of the key. If the speaker is a self-contained little entity, then his world must be his size. His health must be the health of a person. His supply must be the supply of a person. His prayer must be the pleading of a person to a greater power somewhere else, sometime later, after improvement. And then, mark this, every result will report that premise back to you. This is a law. You cannot get away from it. If you start from separation, your whole experience will mirror separation. Your body sense, your finances, your morals, your home, your religion. Each of them saying, in its own language, God is away from here. And yet God is not away. The shade says the sun is gone. The sun is not gone. When the separate I takes the stage, it takes a world with it. A world of before and after, up there and down here, good days and bad days, power against power. See how quickly the simple error multiplies? I am anxious. What does that create? Me versus anxiety. I am sick. Me versus disease. I am unworthy. Me versus an offended deity who must be coaxed. I am trying to reach God. Me versus distance and time. In that instant, you have built a two-powers universe. Me and whatever happens. And then you must struggle. And then you must defend. And then you must persuade. Prayer becomes effort. Effort to drag God out of heaven and into your situation. Effort to make spirit perform as if it were a tool for a frightened person. Now hear the correction, simple as breath. The kingdom of God is within you. Within. Not brought in, not earned in, not delayed until a later holiness. Within. Therefore, any felt distance is not a fact about God. It is a false identity entertained about yourself. The issue is never, will God come? God is omnipresence, or God is nothing. The issue is always, who says I? If I is a personal self asking a far-off God for help, you have sealed your own prayer with the stamp of separation. If I yields, even for a moment, to inner presence, distance collapses of itself. And with it collapses the necessity for a fight. We are laying the foundation here. Misuse of I am breeds a world of two powers and endless struggle. Correct I am, and you are no longer a person in combat. You are awareness, in which God is already on the field. Now let us lay down a principle you must not forget, not for a moment. Your demonstration is directly proportionate to your state of consciousness. This is a mathematical formula. You cannot get away from it. Never believe for a moment that you can bring forth any greater result than the level from which you are living and moving and saying, I. If I is a person, then all that can appear will be personal. Personal improvement, personal fear, personal struggle, personal relapse. If I is presence realized, then the works will report that realization. Peace without a fight, supply without anxiety, order without manipulation, healing without trying to heal. Do you see the string that ties it together? As long as your I is personal, your prayer remains personal, and a personal prayer is a petition from trouble to power. It says, I am here in lack. There is God over there with supply. Please send some. That premise secretly denies omnipresence. It sets up distance and then tries to bridge it with words, emotions, or willpower. And because cause is not corrected, you chase effects. Health is an effect. Supply is an effect. Peace is an effect. You go after effects and leave untouched the only thing that can lawfully change effects: identity. Mark this well. Intensifying human will cannot lift you 1 inch into God realization. It cannot. The eye that tries is the eye that veils. The louder it shouts, the thicker the veil. Not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit. I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within me, He doeth the works. If I is a self-asserting, then you have confessed separation before your first word of prayer. If I is yielded, if it stands still long enough to be the transparency for that inner presence, then the Father within announces Himself, and the works appear as the fruit of realized identity, not the prize of successful pleading. This is not harsh. This is reassurance of the simplest kind. You have been exhausting yourself, attempting to improve appearances while the cause remained unexamined. You polished the leaves and wondered why the root kept sending up the same tree. Change the root. Change the I that is doing the praying. The moment the center is shifted from person to presence, the mathematics of your life changes. The equation is altered at its first term, and the result must follow, because effect cannot outgrow its cause. Therefore, let us be practical. From this hour, begin to locate where the false I is accepted, not only in crises, especially not only in crises. In the quiet, ordinary talk of the day, I am busy, I am tired, I am worried, I am trying, I am behind. There you are declaring a premise, signing your name to a personal universe, and then praying to escape it. Catch it there. Catch it early. Do not add better words to the same identity. Correct the identity, and words become few, and prayer becomes listening, and the presence that is within has room to announce itself. Now let us uncover the trap that sits right inside the words I am, when they are spoken as a separate self. The moment you say I am, and mean this person, you have introduced an opposite for that person to face. Me versus body. Me versus condition. Me versus money. Me versus reputation. Me versus other people. In that very breath, a universe of two powers is born. A self here and something over there with power to hurt or to help. This is not poetry. It is the working premise beneath every fear you carry. Two powers means fear. Fear means defense. Defense means you have left the resting place of presence and entered a campaign. From that instant you are busy. Busy protecting, adjusting, persuading, resisting. Busy is another word for unbelief in omnipresence. Hear the correction in principle, and do not let it slip. God alone is power. There are not two powers, good and evil, spirit and matter, you and fate. All power is invisible. Nothing you can see, hear, taste, touch, or smell is power. What appears as power in form is accepted belief, accepted, not created. If you accept the separate I, you must accept an opposite, and that acceptance turns shadows into adversaries. Refuse the separate I, and shadows remain what they are: shadows, reports without authority. Take it across the board so you cannot hide from it under categories. Physical. I am hurting. Immediately, me versus pain. Me versus organ. Me versus germ, draft, weather. Mental. I am anxious. Me versus thought. Me versus mood. Me versus memory or forecast. Moral. I am tempted. I am guilty. Me versus appetite. Me versus habit. Me versus a past or a code that stands outside to accuse. Financial. I am short. I am behind. Me versus bills. Me versus market. Me versus employer. Me versus a world that either pays me or withholds. Social. I am offended. I am at risk. Me versus their opinion, their power, their politics. Do you see? The battleground is not in the category. The battleground appears the instant the separate I is assumed, and with it, a second power comes to life. Only as belief, but to your experience, it seems law. This is why so many of you have worked so hard and rested so little. Two powers keep you at attention. Two powers keep you calculating, self-scrutinizing, forecasting harms, and rehearsing defenses. But the gospel of principle is not two powers. The gospel of principle is one. Thou couldst have no power at all against me, except it were given thee from above. Not by might, nor by personal will, nor by management, but by the grace of an already present presence. When that is realized, not argued, you stop fighting shadows because you cannot grant them power, and rest in the one that is actually on the field. We will not leave this as a slogan. We must prove it in the simplest way, so simple a child can see it. In our next minutes, we will ask the kindergarten question. Who knows the problem? Does the body know? Does the condition know? Does the world know? Or do I know? And when you see who is knowing it, you will see where the only doorway is, and how to step out of the fight that is the veil. For now, begin to catch the very first move. When I am starts as a person, you have already armed an opposite. When I am yields to presence, the opposite cannot be found. Let us go to kindergarten now, so there can be no confusion left to hide in high language. A draft blows across the room. Wet feet after a walk. A headline shouts disaster. A remark from someone bites. Watch, very slowly, how any of that becomes my problem. Does the chest know that a draft is dangerous? Has the chest read a book on meteorology? No. Does the skin know the doctrine of wet feet, cold tomorrow? No. Does the stomach know a food is wrong? Has it studied a diet chart? No. Does money in your wallet know it is scarce? Do the numbers in a bank ledger tremble? No. Does a headline contain fear inside its ink? Does the sound wave of a remark carry insult as a substance? No. Then where is the knower? What knows danger, lack, offense? I know it. I accept a belief, and then I call that belief reality. Take it a step further so you cannot miss it. A man is given a tiny white pill and told it is a powerful sedative. He grows calm. Later, he learns it was sugar. Another is injected with hot water under the belief that it is morphine, and the pain subsides. Where was the power? Not in the pill, it had none. Not in the liquid, it had none. The body did not analyze and choose, it only reported the belief accepted by consciousness. This is not to make foolishness of anything, it is to show you the principle. Nothing you can see, hear, taste, touch, or smell is power. All power is invisible. What appears as power is belief accepted. Accepted, not created. Now watch the pivot, and say it out loud in your own heart if you must. What knows the problem? I know it. Aha. And that I, if it is a personal self, immediately ties the belief to a body, to a bank account, to a reputation, to a tomorrow. The trouble begins not with the draft, not with the food, not with the news, not with the words. The trouble begins when consciousness identifies as the thing affected instead of the presence aware. I am cold. I am upset. I am ruined. Do you hear it? With that declaration, you have fastened belief to personhood and then asked God to come fight it. Two powers are born in the sentence. Reverse it at the root, and the edifice falls. The chest does not know. The skin does not know. The stomach does not know. Money does not know. Headlines do not know. Words do not know. What knows? I know. And what is the true I? Not a private bundle of flesh and memory, but the very awareness in which these reports appear. The presence that neither fears nor fights. Bring the I am up out of person and into presence, and the report loses its authority. Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Not you shall fix appearances. You shall know truth. Knowing, not forcing. When you see this mechanism, you stop trying to manipulate effects. You do not argue with drafts, food, numbers, or remarks. You do not scold the body or the world for doing what they cannot do. Own power. You go to the only doorway there ever was, the belief accepted by the I that claims it. There you do your one work. You correct identity. You let I am be the recognition of the presence within, and you stand still long enough for that presence to announce itself. From there, appearances take care of themselves, because in the light of one power, the shadows cannot pretend to be anything at all. Be still. We are very near the practice now. Now, having seen where the trouble begins, we must state plainly the correct use of I am. There are two ways the words are used. One is autobiography. I am this kind of person. I am sensitive. I am practical. I am anxious. I am spiritual. That is a litany of personhood. It pins awareness to a bundle of habits and then compels you to live at that level. The other use is not descriptive at all. It is recognition. I am as the light of awareness itself in which all reports appear. Not a sentence about a person, but a consent to the presence that already is. Between these two uses lies the whole distance between struggle and grace. Do not fall into the counterfeit on either side. You do not go about declaring, I am God, as if boast could make it true. Boast is personal, and the personal I is precisely what veils. But neither do you say, I am a human trying to reach God, because that reaffirms separation and postpones omnipresence. Both positions are the same error wearing different hats. Hear the true stance. I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within me, He doeth the works. When that is not a quotation but a standpoint, your I is no longer a doer person. It is a transparency. The works are not personal achievements. They are fruit of realized presence. Let within be understood correctly, or you will chase feelings and call that prayer. Within is not an emotion you manufacture. It is not a mood you sustain. It is a fact. Omnipresence means presence here, presence now. What changes is not God. What changes is your consent, your recognition, your willingness to stop naming yourself as a separate center and to let I be the awareness in which the Father announces himself. Then prayer is not projection, it is reception. Speak, Lord, thy servant heareth. Practice this correction in the very moments where the old habit tempts you. I am anxious. No, that is autobiography. Instead, anxiety is a world belief in two powers appearing as sensation and forecast. I do not accept it as I. I rest in the presence within. I am sick. No, this pain is a report without authority. Nothing that can be seen or felt is power. I stand still in the one that is. I am broke. No. Lack is a universal suggestion of fear. Supply is not in numbers. It is in the presence that is the substance of all form. I rest. I am guilty, tempted, alone. No. These are labels of a personal self. I do not live by labels. The Father within is my life, my purity, my companionship. Do you see the pivot? We are withdrawing identity from the tail and returning it to presence. We are refusing a second power to fight and consenting to the one that never fights. This I am is not assertion. It is surrender to what is. It is the end of personal management and the beginning of quiet reliance. And yet words, even true words, are still words. The mind can mimic them and remain unhealed. Therefore, we must have a way to pass from concept to realization, from saying to hearing. In a few minutes, I will give you one treatment for every claim under heaven. A brief declaration of truth to establish identity, and then silence, listening, until the word announces itself and the belief dissolves of its own nothingness. For now, settle this law in you. The redeemed I am is not a personal claim. It is the simple recognition of the presence that is already within. In that recognition, the Father within doeth the works. Now we come to the practice, and I want you to take this down in your heart as if it were a prescription, because it is one treatment for every claim under heaven. Whether the report is sickness, sin, lack, loneliness, fear, confusion. Do not multiply remedies. Do not tailor techniques. The error is always one and the same, a belief in separation accepted by a personal I. Therefore, the treatment is always one and the same. Restore identity to presence and let the belief dissolve of its own nothingness. Step 1 is the declaration. Short, simple, absolute. You establish the standpoint and then you stop. How? In words like these, make them your own but keep them clean. God alone is power. There are not two powers. The kingdom of God is within me. I and the Father are one, not in ego, in being. I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within me, he doeth the works. Nothing that can be seen, heard, tasted, touched, or smelled is power. All power is invisible presence. That is enough. Do not embroider. Do not argue with appearances. You are not trying to fix a condition. You are announcing the law of being and taking your seat in it. Then step 2. And this is prayer. Prayer is not words going out. Prayer is listening. Speak, Lord, thy servant heareth. You sit in complete stillness. 1 minute. 1 1/4. 1 1/2 if you can. Do not strain. Strain is the personal I trying to get God. Let that go. Let go and be receptive. You are not reaching, you are consenting. Be still. Quiet the tongue. Quiet the emotions. Quiet the bargaining mind. Wait. Listen. If the thought rises to speak again, do not. Silence is the faith. Only God utters his voice. The earth melteth. What should you expect? Do not set up an image, but you may notice a release, as if a weight dropped. A deeper breath that you did not order. The shoulders let go. A warmth, a stillness. Or only an inner assurance in words like, all is well, or God is on the field. That is the word. When it comes, the treatment is finished. Rise and go about your affairs. If it does not come in the first minute, sit again later. No fight, no schedule. Better 1 clean minute than 10 noisy ones. The efficacy is not in duration. It is in realized presence. Use this universally. Headache or heartache, habit or fear, bills or courts, quarrels or silence in the house. It is all the same. Declare the truth. Then stop talking. Listen. The realization itself is the remedy. Not by might, not by personal power, but by the grace of the presence recognized. In that awareness, appearances find their level because the belief that animated them has no one to wear as I. And now a warning you must hear, or you will undo your own prayer. Many of you will rise from that holy silence and within an hour begin again to say, I am busy. I am worried. I am behind. I am not feeling right. In that instant, the veil is rewoven. It is not God's absence. It is your reacceptance of a personal I naming itself all day long. Our next work is to stop rebuilding the wall we just let fall. We must learn how not to hand our name back to the world's mesmerism between prayers. Here is the point at which many of you undo, stitch by stitch, the very veil that fell in your silent minute. You sit. You declare truth. You become still, and you feel that release, that unpurchased ease, that quiet, all is well. Then you rise, and before the clock reaches the hour, you begin again. I am late. I am worried. I am not doing this right. I am afraid this won't last. In those words you enthrone a person, and where a person is enthroned, a second power must be found to oppose it. That is the loop. Pray, release, re-identify, struggle, pray again, around, and you call that my spiritual life. Why is it so subtle? Because it wears the mask of virtue. It sounds humble. I am just being honest about my condition. It sounds responsible. I am keeping up with my duties. It sounds realistic. I am measuring progress. But principle does not bend to masks. If the I in your sentence is a separate self, you have already confessed a universe of two powers and placed yourself back under law, cause in the outer, effect in you. The content of the sentence hardly matters. The identification does. Humble language cannot sanctify a false premise. Responsibility that begins from personhood can only manage personhood. Realism that starts from separation will certify separation as real. Here is the cost. See it, and you will cease paying it. The moment you repersonalize I am, you begin to measure God by outcomes. Did the pain move? Did the figure change? Did the phone ring? And when appearances lag, you secretly conclude, God is distant. Prayer failed. I did not get through. No, God is not distant. Prayer did not fail. There is no through to get. The only distance is identity confusion, and it is measured not in miles, but in pronouns. I as person versus I as presence. Therefore, take up a simple self-audit, not as scolding, as protection. All through the day, listen for the words I am as they rise to your tongue or thought, and ask at once, is this an announcement of a separate self or a recognition of presence? If it is personal, I am tired, I am pressed, I am flustered. Stop right there. Do not varnish it. Do not argue with it. Withdraw identity. This is a world belief reporting as sensation and schedule. It is not I. I rest in the one. Then be still for a breath, one breath, and let presence regain the throne. Drive this into consciousness so deeply that it moves by itself. Every time you personalize I am, you accept two powers again. And every time you refuse the personal I and return to inner recognition, the veil thins again. This is a law. You cannot get away from it. Consciousness determines demonstration. Identification determines consciousness. Keep the root clean, and the fruit will follow without strain. Do not wait for crises to practice. The small phrases are the doorway. I am busy. I am bored. I am irritated. I am trying so hard. Each is a string you can let go. Each is an invitation to rest in presence rather than manage effects. In quietness and confidence shall be your strength, not in better sentences attached to the same mistaken self. And now you see why this is not occasional inspiration, but daily protection. The world belief names you all day long if you let it, and you answer to the wrong name. So our next work is to begin before the world speaks, to refuse mesmerism in the morning, to establish identity as presence before any headline, body sense, or schedule can draft you into personhood. Then the loop is broken at dawn, and the day moves in grace. Begin before the world speaks, preferably early in the morning, before headlines, before calendar, before the body's first report. Sit quietly and remember, this is God's day, not yours to manage, not fate's to threaten, God's. God alone is power. There are not two powers. Fix that as the cornerstone. If you start there, the structure of the day rises in grace. If you omit it, the day will draft you into personhood, and you will run its errands. This is not poetry. It is protection. Daily remembrance prevents the world from naming your identity for you. What is this world mesmerism we refuse? It is the unceasing suggestion that power sits in economy, in the body, in politics, in other people's moods, in time itself. It whispers, the market will decide your supply. The symptom will decide your peace. The poll will decide your safety. Their opinion will decide your worth. The clock will decide your sufficiency. All of it is one suggestion wearing many masks. I am a person at the mercy of externals. That is the recruitment. It seeks your I am to sign the enlistment. The moment you sign, a second power is born, and fear must follow. Do not fight these appearances. Do not argue with them. Do not set up a second army and call it prayer. Refusal is not resistance. Refusal is the quiet withholding of power. Error is not a power. It is a belief, and belief requires your consent to function as your experience. Withhold consent. In the morning, let these words be enough, clean and few. Nothing that can be seen, heard, tasted, touched, or smelled is power. All power is invisible presence. God alone governs this day. I and the Father are one, not by boast, by being. Then be still. Speak, Lord, thy servant heareth. Now the pivot that ends power struggle living. Give up the idea of power and substitute the word grace. Not, how will I get power to meet these powers? That is the old warfare. Grace means government from within without contest. Not by might nor by power, but by my Spirit. Rest there. 1 minute, 1 1/4, 1 1/2. No strain, no pleading. A minute of realized grace will do more than an hour of thinking about God. When the inner assurance comes, all is well. God is on the field. Rise and walk into the day under that government. Carry one line with you as a staff and use it whenever the world calls your name. Be still. In quietness and confidence shall be your strength. A breath's pause under that line, again and again, breaks the spell each time it tries to reform. If a report shouts, if a body whispers, if a schedule leans, do not grant power. Return to grace. Every time, every time, every time you refuse to personalize I am and rest back into presence, the veil thins. Make this habitual, and you will begin to see how healing happens here. Not force applied to appearances, but belief dissolving in realized presence. Fears that seemed solid evaporate as if they had no root because they did not. Circumstances recompose without struggle because nothing outside was governing you in the first place. Establish the morning, and the day bears witness to the one. This is a law. You cannot get away from it. In quietness and confidence shall be your strength. Now let me state the confession that frees you from technique and frees me from pretense. I do not know how to heal. I do not heal. My only function is to attain consciously the realization of God's presence. Then the Father within me, He doeth the works. When that presence is realized, the work is done without effort, without method, without a personal healer applying a power to a problem. When it is not realized, words are only words, and effort is only effort. This is a law. You cannot get away from it. What then happens to the discord? Nothing is done to it. In realized presence, the belief that gave the discord its seeming life has no ground to stand on. It evaporates. No power is applied to it. No struggle is waged with it. In light, darkness does not go somewhere. It is found to be nothing at all. So in the awareness of one power, the report of a second power cannot maintain itself. It is not conquered. It is unmasked. And when a mask is removed, there is nothing to fight. Bring this back to your I am. I am sick is not a fact in God. It is a belief structure erected on the cornerstone of a separate self. That structure stands by your consent to be a person against a condition. Withdraw that consent, let I am rest as presence, and the scaffolding of two powers collapses. The sensation may still knock at the door for a season, the numbers may continue to rattle their chains, but there is no host to receive them as I. Without identification, the the suggestion loses its instrument. Ye shall know the truth, not apply it as force, and the truth shall make you free. Now to your impatience and fear. Do not outline results. Do not measure by the clock. The personal I loves timetables. 5 minutes to peace, 3 days to supply, 2 weeks to a new body. That is the old manager sneaking back with a calendar. Refuse it. Your measure is not minutes, but realization. 1 minute, 1.25 of honest stillness is enough for your beginning. If all you notice is a small ease, a breath you did not order, receive it as the seal of the word. Rise and go about your affairs under that government. If fear returns, do not scold the appearance or yourself. Return to the one treatment. Declare truth. Then be still. Nothing more is required. Not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit. Let us gather this into a working summary and a simple rhythm you can live. Each morning, before the world speaks, establish one power and your identity as presence realized. Sit your minute and listen until assurance whispers. Through the day, refuse to let I am fasten to reports. A single breath under be still, in quietness and confidence, restores the center. If a claim arises, use the one treatment, a clean declaration, then silence until the word announces itself. Once or twice in the week, set aside a longer period, not for asking, not for outcomes, only for listening. 15 quiet minutes in which you practice being nobody but transparency. At day's end, withdraw I from whatever the world named you, return it to presence, and rest. This is how healing happens here. Not force applied to appearances, but belief dissolving in realized presence. Keep to this, and results will follow their cause, unfought and unhastened. Because the Father within is on the field. Now we draw it together in one clean sentence, so it cannot slip from you. The I am of separation creates distance, two powers, and struggle. The I am of recognition reveals the kingdom within. That is the whole arc. The kingdom of God is within you. Not up ahead, not out there, not if this or when that. Within. And because it is within, I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within me, He doeth the works. Your work is not force, it is recognition. Your prayer is not asking, it is listening. Be still. Speak, Lord, thy servant heareth. Here is your plan, and it is sufficient. Morning protection. 1 minute, 1.25, 2 if you can. Before the world speaks, sit and establish one power. God alone is power. There are not two powers. The kingdom is within. Then be still. Wait without bargaining until assurance, even a whisper, announces itself. Rise and walk in that grace. Midday audit. Twice, perhaps at noon and late afternoon, pause for a breath and listen for the words forming in you as I am. If they announce a person, I am tired, I am behind, I am worried. Withdraw identity at once. Refuse two powers. This is the world belief reporting as sensation and clock. It is not I. Then be still for one quiet breath. Let presence reclaim its own. Evening return. 1 minute, 1.5 before rest. Lay down the day's names and reports. I can of mine own self do nothing. Let the I return to transparency. Be still. Speak, Lord, thy servant heareth. Sleep under that government. Now, how will you evaluate? Not by asking, did I get what I wanted? That is the old manager counting outcomes. Ask instead, did I return to the consciousness of one power, one presence? Because demonstration cannot rise above your sense of I, and when I is presence realized, works follow as fruit. This is a mathematical law of consciousness. You cannot get away from it. Keep the root, and the fruit will be there, unfought and unhastened. So rest. Stop naming yourself apart from God. Refuse the enlistment of two powers. Let I am be the quiet recognition of the presence already within. Then listen. Be still. Speak, Lord, thy servant heareth. Live from that assurance. And as you do, you will find that the still small voice becomes your normal standpoint, and the Father within is on the field, always, doing the works.